Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell revived their COTA feud on Sunday, but this time Busch admitted to playing the butthead. Nevertheless, Busch isn't happy as he still is winless, losing his winning each season streak last year. And it has now been 60 races. So this time Busch made an insane decision. But will this result in a win? Last year, Busch was sent spinning after Bell attempted a dive bomb move, and the two-time Cup Series winner confronted Bell on pit road after the race. Their paths crossed again on Sunday, this time battling for the lead in the race's final circuits. Busch used every bit of his number 8 Chevrolet to fend off Bell, until the two collided side by side, resulting in Bell making the race-winning pass. Busch admitted after the race that he was a complete butthead in his attempt to hold off Bell, and he doubled down on Monday. Last year's #20 was the butthead, Busch commented on X. This year it was me, Gigi, Bell. Busch dominated much of the race, leading 42 laps. He had control of the race late, but when a caution on lap 78 called for a final restart on lap 83, Busch knew he'd have his hands full. Bell had the fresher tires and spent the next 6 laps launching everything at Busch. Bell finally passed Busch for the lead on lap 90. Busch's car had nothing left, and he slipped to 5th at the end of the race. Bell won for the second time in a row, while Busch's winless record now stands at 60 races. That caution, Busch claimed, made the difference. However, the battle with Bell was clean, which he respected. "I wish we could have had a little bit more there at the end," Busch said. "I feel like maybe the 2-lap fresher tires the 20 had was the difference. But I also hated to see that yellow that came out. I felt like we had a little bit of a gap there that I was protecting my tires, and I could run the lines I wanted to run. I didn't have to run defensive lines and use up my stuff even more so, which I did, when the 20 was right on me." I'll give Christopher credit though, where credit's due. He ran me really hard, and I was a complete butthead, but he did a great job working me over and just doing it the right way and being able to get by. And just like that, Busch turned into a nice guy instead of a hothead. Could that be the turning point for Busch? Could his new demeanor result in some wins this season? I'm saying this because following a poor, winless 2024 season, two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Busch appears to be on a mission in 2025 after the first 3 races. Busch has been competitive throughout the season, and that was evident on Sunday afternoon as he dominated the most of the race at COTA in Austin, Texas. While he was unable to maintain his advantage late, he still finished in the top 5, and the number 8 squad seemed to be on the verge of victory. During the most recent episode of the Teardown following the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix, NASCAR insiders Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi assessed Busch's season thus far, believing he's regaining some of his swagger after last season's disaster campaign. "It feels like he's got a little bit of mojo back," Gluck stated regarding Busch. "It feels like he's got a little bit of momentum. I know it's 2 super speedways and a road course, but I don't know. It just feels like he's got confidence. A little bit of swagger again." I don't think we would have gone into this race going, "Kyle Busch is one of the favorites to win on a road course. We haven't seen that in a long time." Meanwhile, Bianchi isn't ready to crown Busch as champion just yet, but he believes the famous driver is on the right track. The next 2 weeks will be key, and he wants to see if he can continue to outperform expectations. "I understand what you're saying, and you're right. We've talked so much about how Kyle Busch needed a strong start to the year. Richard Childress Racing needed a strong start to the year. They got it. They don't have the wins to show for it, but they have the performance," Bianchi responded. "Even if you take away just the super speedways, today was a great example of this. I think it shows too. You go back a year ago, Kyle almost won the Southern 500. He almost won in Atlanta. There were a couple of other places along the way where he was really competitive, and if something changes there along the way, his season takes on a whole different complexion, playoffs, etc. It feels like the changes that RCR touted over the offseason, they brought in a lot of outside personnel, which is really unusual for that organization. Different ideas, a 30,000-foot perspective, has really started to pay dividends. It does feel a little bit different. Go to a racetrack like this, and I don't want to say dominated, but he did lead the most laps. Was in control of this race for a large portion of it. This is different." Now, all that said, I hate to be that guy, but I have to pump the brakes a little bit. I need to see it now, with going to traditional ovals. I think this next stretch, Phoenix, Vegas, Homestead, is going to be really indicative of where RCR is, where Kyle Busch is at, And now we're really going to have a clear understanding of who compares to who, and who's in a good spot and who's not. They have the ability to do that, but we have to see that. This was a great first step though. Regardless of Kyle Busch's performance at COTA, it's clear that the driver and his number 8 team intended to start strong in 2025, and they've done so thus far. The next stage will be to finish the job, and they'll have a chance to reach victory lane next weekend when the Cup Series visits Phoenix. Are they able to get some wins this season? What do you think? And if that happens, could he make it far into the playoffs later this year? Although Busch has changed his approach to racing, there was a big shift from NASCAR itself, as they caused a lot of controversy and confusion during the weekend. As during the NASCAR weekend at COTA, officials, drivers, and teams were perplexed over which corners had track regulations enforced. There were no calls made in Turn 6 during the Xfinity Series race, which remained unnoticed until Sunday. Drivers were asking what was going on in the middle of the race. Many have witnessed others cutting Turn 6 without penalty. Word spread that track limits were not being enforced at Turn 6 going out of the SS. Turns 3, 4, and 5 were enforced. Eventually, news spread, and despite certain officials informing spotters differently, Turn 6 had no track boundaries. The NASCAR drivers at COTA were free to cut the corner as they lined up on the wide right to make the turn into 6A and 6B. The Athletics' Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi criticized NASCAR for the COTA track limit problem. They talked about it after the race on the Teardown podcast. In Stage 1, social media starts lighting up with a lot of questions because leader Shane Van Gisbergen is cutting Turn 6 on every lap, Gluck explained. People have all these pictures and they're sending in questions. What's going on? Finally, Stage 1 ends and Kyle Busch comes on the radio, and he had been right behind SVG. His team says, "Hold on, we're going to check with NASCAR." This is during the Stage 1 break, and they come back and they say, guess what? NASCAR says they're going to police Turns 3, 4, and 5, but not Turn 6. So, feel free to go through there. After the race, Kyle Busch was upset about this and said, NASCAR ain't got a clue about what they're doing officiating-wise with the SS. The two journalists did express some criticism, but not seriously. It's annoying to have to talk about officiating after such a fantastic race like Sunday. But now we're talking about officiating. I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy. It sounds like podcast fodder, Bianchi said. Like the NASCAR Hauler Talk podcast. Listen guys, we can't let a week go by without always having something to talk about. Give us a little bit of a bone here. Hey, well, I'm sure they'll address it, Gluck added. Mike Ford, Amanda Ellis, and Nate Ryan will talk about this. Yeah, it was sort of like, that's kind of weird. It was weird how it unfolded, I guess. I don't think it changed the race. Bianchi got serious about it. So why are we even having this conversation? How hard would it be for NASCAR to expressly inform teams that Turn 6 will not be enforced? No, but we're talking about officiating again, Bianchi started to conclude. It's a minor thing. I want to make sure I say that. It's a minor thing, and it really didn't alter the outcome in any way, but it's a weird little cutesy thing that probably didn't need to happen. Again, just have a race where we don't have to talk about officiating, big, small, medium, whatever. NASCAR had some troubles at COTA this weekend. Hopefully we won't witness any more officiating concerns in Phoenix. I am hopeful, but I am not holding my breath. What about you? What are you expecting for this weekend?